Welcome to the Dr. Maria Show. Sad news today. Pope Francis has passed away. He was seen out and about in a wheelchair on Easter. Our vice president even got to see him. J.D. Vance is a new convert to Catholicism, and he was able to meet with Pope Francis, noting that he was ill. Let's just watch this.
Hello. So good to see you. God bless you and good morning. How are you?
Find yourself. Happy
Easter. Yeah, thank you. Happy Easter to you, Father. Wonderful. I know you've not been feeling great, but it's good to see you in better health.
Grazie.
Anche buona Pasquale. E dice
Grazie Santo Padre.
Thank you.
these are for your children.
Okay, thank you.
These are the gifts. These are also gifts for you as well.
Thank you. It's beautiful.
The Vatican tie.
I'm very glad that J.D. Vance had that opportunity. Pope Francis was the second oldest pope. He was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio, and he was both Argentinian and Italian background. Grew up in an era of socialism, but always dedicated his life to helping others. And certainly when he first became Pope in 2013, we saw him take that vow of poverty and talk about the poor and how we shouldn't turn our back. And we all agree on that. That's, to me, is not even Catholic. That's humanitarian, right? Now, I cannot mention all the wonderful things Pope Francis did without mentioning some controversial things. In 2018, he really botched a sexual allegation abuse investigation in Chile. And then he really got turned around with climate change, with politics in the United States of America. You know, people are going to disagree on different policies, but when he was talking about how we shouldn't have any borders, he didn't take into consideration the victims of our open borders. He should have been more empathetic to the victims of rape, fentanyl deaths, etc. But having said that, he was our first pope from Latin America, and it is a big job. You are the leader of, I don't know, it's estimated 1.5 billion in the Catholic Church. Never mind all the money. But what happens now? We're going to go through about 9 days of mourning. Approximately 251 cardinals will be brought to Rome, and then they'll go into conclave. Well, as you know, I had a visit at the Vatican in late February, and the Pope was in the hospital at that time. And I was greeted by several bishops and cardinals who, at that time, they expected the Pope was going to pass away. So I was very blessed, and in the background, you could see some pictures. I was brought into places that the public can't go inside the Vatican, including the crying room, the chapel that they go and pray in before they go into the conclave in the Sistine Chapel. I did feel a little guilty when I was brought into the Sistine Chapel, which I've been multiple times before, but I know you can't take pictures in there, right? They don't want the artwork. And it's not just Michelangelo. There's other very famous, great artwork in the Sistine Chapel. You don't want it degrading with flash and other things like that. But they allowed us, my little group, to take pictures. So I did feel a little guilty about that. It's like, who the heck are we? But what's going to happen now? I am very happy to have my guest here today, Michael Hitchborn, who's president of the Lepanto Institute. And what I really like about Michael is how pro-life he is. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Michael, were you surprised? We knew the Pope was sick in February. He gets out of the hospital. I was very surprised to see him involved in some Easter Sunday activities. But that evening, he had a stroke, went into a coma, and passed away. So it did seem a little surprising to wake up on Monday to find that he did pass away.
Well, I think that anytime somebody dies, it's always a shock. My grandfather, when he was dying, we knew he was dying, but when it happened, it was still a shock. In fact, that evening, I remember when I was with my grandfather, I looked at him, I woke him up because he was asleep. I said, "Good night, Papa. I love you. I'll see you in the morning." And he said, "I love you too." And he closed his eyes and he went back to sleep. I went to bed. And a few hours later, my mother woke me up and said that he had just died. And, when I said, "I'll see you in the morning," I said it reflexively, even though I knew he was dying. And I think the same thing happens with somebody like the Pope. You see him up and about, he's not well, he's not doing well. I saw some of the footage of him as he's being wheeled around. I saw his infirmity, and I knew that he was not long for this world. But when I woke up this morning, it was still a surprise. It was still shocking because, you just don't know. And that was kind of how things played out for me anyway.
Pope Francis was a little controversial. Some of the great things that he did is he started putting women in positions of power within the Vatican. He still did not let them become ordained, though. This is my personal opinion, and I am a Catholic, but I don't agree that only men should be priests. And I don't believe they have to be celibate. I don't understand that. And I hope we get past that. But in other ways, I'm really a traditionalist. And that's where Pope Francis pissed some people off, even within the Vatican. I'm not going to name names, but when I was there in February, I think because people thought he was actively dying at that time, they were very open about how they didn't think the Pope was standing up enough for the unborn, that he wasn't, that he was standing up too, and I shouldn't say standing up, but he was focused too much on transgender without really calling out the need for mental health. It was more, let's just accept, which is fine. We love all human beings, absolutely. But some people need help if they're mentally ill. So he was a little controversial in that area. And you've done incredible work about how precious life is in the womb. And I hate to say it this way, but under the Biden administration, we saw state after state celebrate the ability to kill a child in the womb up to 9 months. Some, your ex-governor of Virginia, and he was a physician, even contemplated after birth. What do you think Pope Francis's legacy will be on the unborn?
Well, unfortunately, I think it's going to have a very negative impact, starting with the fact that back in 2014, when he first met with Ban Ki-moon and Jeffrey Sachs in the Vatican, they approached him and they talked to him about the Sustainable Development Goals, and they talked to him about what sustainable development was all about. And he promised that he would give the full weight and support of the Catholic Church to the program of sustainable development. So that was what he wanted to do. And since then, he published Laudato Si, which was a highly controversial document, which mentioned sustainability and sustainable development 23 times throughout the document. After that, he had given speeches in the Vatican. He gave statements to public officials. He spoke at the United Nations every year, consistently calling for implementation and adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, let me explain to you why this is a problem. because there are several elements of these goals that expressly call for universal healthcare coverage, including for abortions and family planning. This was not something that was taken out of the Sustainable Development Goals. It was never criticized by Pope Francis, as he was giving the full support of the Catholic Church to the Sustainable Development Goals. And in the progress of this, as he's doing this, he even met with the head or the leading abortionist in Italy at the time and elevated her. He called her a treasure for Italy. And she had aborted babies all the way up until the moment of birth. So his legacy with regard to abortion is extremely problematic, because he was consistently promoting people and elevating and lauding people who were fighting directly against life. And even though he called abortion murder for hire, he would then on the one hand, he's calling abortion murder for hire, but then on the other hand, he's turning around and he's saying, these are wonderful people. These are great people. We need to invite them in. We need to listen to them. He had Paul Ehrlich, who the author of The Population Bomb, calling for population control, universal population control, including abortion. He had him speaking at Vatican summits. So there was a disconnect between what he said and what he did. And it's a constant problem throughout his entire papacy.
Yeah, and a lot of Americans, we didn't like it when he judged the fact that we wanted secure borders. He didn't seem, or at least it seemed to me, he had a deaf ear when it came to the cries of the victims because of what was happening. There are good and evil. The devil does exist. If we believe God exists, we have to believe the devil exists. And it seemed like Pope Francis ignored that. And you're right, he talked out of both sides of his mouth. But I actually don't want to say everything that was bad about Pope Francis, because obviously for anybody to give up everything, worldly goods, and dedicate your life to improving others, I have to give them that. What will happen next is going to be a mystery. Boy, would I love Cardinal Dolan to be selected the next pope. But I don't know if they're ready for an American. What do you think?
Personally, I would prefer somebody more akin to Cardinal Burke. But I think that they probably are not ready for an American pope. I think that that Pope Francis has stacked the deck when he brought in 140 different individuals to become cardinals. Those cardinals, many of whom are well known to be very liberal. Cardinal Tagle is a current front runner. Cardinal Parolin obviously is a front runner. And Parolin was problematic. He was part of the whole China deal. So that's a big problem right out the bat too. So there are problems all around with regard to who might be considered papabile from those that were chosen by Pope Francis. But there are a few that I think are bright lights that could come forward as a dark horse candidate and take the lead. I would look for somebody like Cardinal Erdo or Cardinal Ike in the Netherlands, or perhaps even Cardinal Ranjith. I think that somebody such as any of those men would be a good candidate who could speak clearly on what the church truly teaches and guide souls back to Christ as the church is called to do. I think that individuals such as those would be really the ones to right the ship.
Yeah, and back to good Catholic schools, traditional Catholic schools, with pushing all those classical education elements. Tell me real quick about the Lepanto Institute.
Sure. The Lepanto Institute was set up in 2014. I was the director of Defend the Faith at American Life League for about 7.5 years. And in that capacity, I had conducted tons of research into the Catholic Campaign for Human Development and Catholic Relief Services and various other charitable organizations that had a good reputation. And as I dug into them, I found out that they were financing organizations that were promoting abortion, contraception, homosexuality, Marxism. Catholic Relief Services is one of the biggest offenders in this regard. So as my investigations grew, I started to fall outside the scope of what American Life League was set up to do. And we had a conversation. We decided to separate mutually, and I started my own investigations in this regard and established the Lepanto Institute to do just that. Since then, we now have a charity reports list on our homepage, lepantoin.org. You can just click at the top of the link and you can see charity reports. We have about 150 different organizations that we have thoroughly vetted, some of which we mark as safe, and then many of which we mark as not safe. If you click on the link to the not safe organizations, it'll take you to a report explaining why we came to the conclusions we did. Or if you click the ones marked safe, it'll just take you straight to the website of the organization itself. So that's the service that we provide. Other than that, we continue to conduct deep dive investigations into all kinds of things going on within the church. We are a research organization, so if you really want to keep up to date, sign up for our newsletter.
I am going to do that, Michael, and I want to have you back again because I keep hearing that Catholic Charities, who was an NGO, a non-government organization, got a lot of money to process, especially minors coming across the border. It's been a big concern that these missing children were put into sex trafficking rings. What was the role of Catholic Charities? So we need to have you back on that one. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me on. God bless you.
God bless you as well.
Are you looking for monthly income without the risk of stocks? Here's something you won't hear on CNBC. There's actually a unique way to collect royalties directly from America's most productive oil fields. No exploring, drilling, or operational headaches. You simply collect checks month after month. The best part? You can get started with just $25 through any brokerage account. The Oxford Club's chief income strategist, Mark Lichtenfeld, breaks down what he believes is the #1 oil royalty play for 2025. Visit mariaoilboom.com now to learn more. That's right, mariaoilboom.com. Stop buying oil stocks and start collecting oil royalty checks instead.
As you know, healthcare is in my blood. It means a lot to me to provide high quality care. But would you believe, as a hospital CEO, it was very important to me to have really good pricing, normal pricing. But in the hospital world, there's a lot of factors why the prices are just out of this world. I want to show you a couple slides that I put together many years ago, but they're still relevant. There's so much burden in the hospital. There's over 60 agencies that can audit you. So as you can see here, here's some dollar amounts that were put to different regulations. The very first one, conditions of participation. I have no problem if there was a regulatory statute and it was going to improve patient care. I would learn how to deal with that statute and I would do it to the best of my ability. But most of these regulations do nothing to improve patient care, but it automatically adds money to your bill. As you can see on these further slides, every time the government or regulatory agency gets involved with the hospital, it's going to add money and resources to your bill, but it doesn't have anything to do with patient care. And on this slide, you'll see that the minute you're admitted to the hospital, it adds about $1,200 to your bill. It's crazy. And I'm sure these are a little bit dated. It's even worse today. Well, luckily, we have entrepreneurs in the community that are trying to do everything in their power to have high quality care, but also make it affordable to you and me. Here with me tonight is Nick Vallis, a healthcare entrepreneur in the New Hampshire area. He started out with physical therapy, surgical centers. Now he's moving into imaging that's affordable and primary care. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you for having me. Maria, we've known each other a while in healthcare, and even though you had been on the hospital side of the equation and I was on the independent freestanding side, we've always been aligned on access and affordability to patients. And
Ye-
affordability is critically important, you know.
Yes, and I've watched your career with fascination because you got to do a lot of things that I was a little bit stifled because in a hospital, you are open 24/7. You have to have an emergency staff, whether you have one patient that requires emergency care or 500. So you need very expensive doctors and nurses on staff, ultrasonographers 24/7. But I was able to reduce prices in a very difficult way in a small rural hospital. Usually you go by the law of economics. So you have low volume, you have to put up the price to cover the staffing. And I was able to make it better for the consumer. But what you're doing, Nick, let's start with Basque Imaging, Bedford Ambulatory Surgery Center's imaging. Very affordable. You have low dose CT. What is the significance of having low dose radiation CT?
A lot of the older, it's exposure to radiation, which can be harmful. And so in many cases of cancer treatment, cancer therapies, um, physicians wish to know how the tumors are being affected. So oftentimes patients would have to have multiple CTs. And so this could increase the risk of more cancer by having a high dose CT. So um, with advancements in technology, you're able to reduce the exposure to radiation. Um, Patients have no idea whatsoever as to what CT they're choosing. And to that end, we opened up the Bedford Ambulatory Surgical Centers, imaging centers, 10 years ago, actually 11 years now. And it was a call to um, offer diagnostics outside the wall of a hospital. There was no reason to have it in a hospital. And but if you're void of competition, there aren't any checks and balances to make you better. So we decided to do that through my encouragement. I thought the city of Manchester and metropolitan Manchester area needed a freestanding imaging center. So with the support of my board, I was able to build an imaging center that had MRI, CAT scan, and ultrasound at a fraction of the price of a hospital.
And
One
it
fifth.
sure is. I agree with you. And I was able recently to use those services. Not only was it very easy for my physician to get the order in, the staff was incredible, top notch. I couldn't believe how cheap it was. And that included the radiologist to read my CAT scan. Facility was clean, ultra sophisticated. I want to let everybody know about it. And I do have to say, Nick, you know this, you're probably a threat to the establishment, right? A lot of people in healthcare, they like the status quo. I happen to like disruption because I care about the consumer, as do you. So we have to make sure the patient feels confident enough to say, doctor, I don't want that ultrasound in the hospital. I want to go to Basque Imaging because it's going to be better for their pocketbook.
Yeah, leading cause of personal bankruptcy in America and in New Hampshire is healthcare debt. So think how evil it is today to not only be sick and injured, seriously sick or injured, and then you get bills for oftentimes you don't know where they're coming from, okay, that bankrupt you. Most patients are in a $6,000 individual deductible, excuse me, or a 12,000 family deductible. So what's happened in the industry is that people are pretty much self-insured, except for catastrophes.
Mm.
So think about that. Right now, Maria, you could have chosen to go to a hospital and paid $5,000 in our local hospital systems, or in your case, I don't know what you had done, but you could $600-700, $800 maybe.
Oh my
Big
God, it was
difference.
less than that. It was less than $500 for a CAT scan of my entire abdomen and a radiology reading. It's just unheard of.
Yeah. And I'm proud of it because our mission, my why, is access and affordability. And you could say you have insurance, but guess what? Just because you have insurance doesn't mean you have coverage. But remember that statement. It's so true. And people, unfortunately, because of lack of transparency, Maria, go blindly to facilities and services and all of a sudden get crushed financially. Okay.
Mm.
And, I understand an emergency, you're not really thinking, but most care is elective in its nature. You have time.
Yes.
And, but we also promise great access. So, we know people, it's a scary moment when all of a sudden there's a threat of a tumor or cancer. And, we try to get people in ASAP so they're not out there lingering, wondering what might kill them. So access and affordability is two very important dimensions of healthcare that needs far more attention as we try to disrupt healthcare for the better. So
And my
that's what
hospital
we're doing.
colleagues, I want to tell them, don't be afraid of it. There is a role for hospital diagnostics. Absolutely. We have critically injured people all the time or critically ill inpatients that need those services. But if it's elective, which most are, we should be sending those patients, if we truly care about that patient, we should be sending them to facilities that they can afford. Nick, you said that scenario. If you have a deductible of $6,000-7,000 in that same testing that I had done at Basque Imaging, I went to a local hospital. I would have had to pay the whole deductible. My insurance would not have kicked in at all. I would have paid the $5,000 where out of pocket, both are out of pocket, but going to a facility like yours, it was digestible and I was worry free. I got in right away. I got the report right away and everything was perfect.
How about you were able to drive up right to the door, park, okay, right? Think of the patient experience and healthcare, because the amount of money that's being spent, patients deserve more. They deserve better than what we give them. But healthcare is often void of competition because of
Yeah.
regulations and the government. The government oftentimes protects the franchises. So you talk about, the expenses of running a hospital, Maria. Well, guess
Mm,
what? Hospitals get paid 5 times more than what freestanding independents get paid. I would
yeah.
love to get that reimbursement. I'd be happy to open up an emergency room. I mean, are you kidding? It's not right. And
Yeah.
the evil in there are three fee schedules put out by Medicare every year. There's the hospital rate, there's the hospital outpatient department rate, then there's the freestanding independent non-hospital rate. And the freestanding independent non-hospital rate is 5x, okay, of the hospital rate for the same service and oftentimes the same doctor. Okay. And when it comes
Mm,
to total joint replacements, or orthopedics, you're talking savings of tens of thousands of dollars just in our facilities alone, Maria. There are 3 ambulatory surgical centers that I oversee. I estimated just on total hips and knee replacements, the savings to the state of New Hampshire and the federal government and commercial health insurance, we saved over $200 million just on total joint surgery. This is what I'm doing.
That's
That's an,
impressive.
yeah, yeah. We need, this is gonna upset a lot of people, but I know you don't mind, and I don't mind because it's the right thing. We need accurate transparency, okay, which will then create competition, okay? And not everything is free market. I get that. We should have a safety net, but there's enough money being spent in the healthcare system that we can do much better than we are doing in improving access and affordability. So with all that being said, nothing will correct unless we have transparency, Maria.
I agree with you, Nick. The other thing you and I have talked about in the past is the lack of primary care, independent primary care. It seems that all doctors and nurse practitioners are employed by the hospitals, and I fought to help providers stay independent because I think that's really important. And you're doing something with another one of your companies called Delphi. Tell me about that.
Yes, I am proud to tell you about Delphi, Maria. Delphi is a primary care practice that is a blend of concierge and conventional primary care. And what we've done, because if you look at the amount of burnout, especially since COVID in the world of primary care, we have many physicians who've stopped practicing medicine. The workload for a physician, an employed physician in a hospital system, oftentimes is, 12, 1,500 patients in their panel. They're expected to see 18 to 20 patients a day. Doctors they hate this. They hate this. They don't have time. They're not able to spend time with their patients to get to know their patients. So what we've done is turn back the hands of time. In spite of technology advancements and pharmacology advancements, we want people to have a primary care doctor for real. And so we basically recruited some physicians, some with great reputations, and brought them into a model where they only have to see 8 to 10 patients a day to make it work. And they love it. They have greater work-life balance. They get to spend time with their patients. I'll digress to psychiatric help or mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Can't, everyone is focused on bricks and mortar. People need a doctor. Maria, when you
Yeah.
were a child, you had a doctor. All right.
Yes.
Your family had a doctor. All right. Your family, and the doctor knew the family socioeconomic factors of the family dynamics. They knew when so and so wasn't feeling well, and you could confide because you had a strong patient physician covenant. Okay, that was protected, and your physician not only was your physician, they were your advocate. But what happens today? You go to the hospital, now you get a hospitalist who has no idea who the hell you are. Changes your prescription. You get
Sorry.
when you enter the hospital. What you need is a physician to advocate, your doctor to advocate for you when you are in the hospital. And especially when you're in tremendous need, when you're sick, you need a doctor to help you navigate. What happens today? It's the family. And now it's left upon the family, spouse or child, or to start advocating and help you navigate to specialists and whatever is needed. That's
Yes.
it's
And
ridiculous.
it cost savings too, right? If you have a primary care provider who knows you, knows your medical history, they will save you from expensive testing and or exposure to radiation because they know you so well. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight, and I look forward to learning more about what you're doing next. I encourage people to look up BASC, BASC imaging. Look up Delphi and any of the ambulatory surgery centers. Bedford Ambulatory Surgery Center is quite famous around here for the great care, cost-saving care. Nick, thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you, Maria, for having me. And it's a pleasure talking to you because we have so much work to do, Maria, and there are solutions. And I really mean that. It starts with transparency, though, and I truly believe this administration is on it. Without full transparency, things are not going to change. So I look forward to talking again, Maria. Take care.
Thank you.
If you want to feel and look your best, you need to check out Pure Health Research. They have 45 premium health supplements that are designed to help you with everyday health goals. Whether it's boosting your energy or trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone up, or even reducing swelling in your legs, Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients, backed by clinical research and manufactured right here in the USA. And here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use promo code Lindell at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's nothing to lose. So head over to purehealthresearch.com now, explore their 45 amazing supplements, and save 35% before this deal ends with promo code Lindell. Let me ask you, do you ever think about what's in energy drinks? Well, it's time we did. Introducing Rev 7, a premium energy drink that's actually good for you, and it tastes great and gives you energy all day. Plus, it has no sugar or caffeine, so you won't experience those jitters and crashes that we've all been through with the other energy drinks. And what makes Rev 7 so special is that it's powered with Cognizant, a premium nootropic that helps fuel your mind, and Go BHB, which is a primary ketone in your body that provides the most efficient and cleanest fuel ever. It's a game changer when it comes to consuming less sugar and caffeine and still getting the energy we need. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20%. And I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free.
Welcome back to the Dr. Maria Show. Very interesting guest so far. Nick Vallis, a healthcare entrepreneur who wants to make healthcare more affordable and also make the patient experience comfortable. And then Michael Hitchborn. I know I'm going to have Michael back. I have a feeling he knows a lot of information, and I want to protect people. I do. It's part of my role as a healthcare leader. It's part of my role as a medical provider, as a human being. So I can't wait to have Michael back. Well, I promised you a guest from north of New Hampshire. Do you know your geography? North of New Hampshire is Canada. So here with me, I have a guest, a Polish Canadian, Pastor Artur Pawlowski. He'll let me know if I didn't pronounce it right, who's going to let us know about what he went through during the Trudeau administration. Welcome to the show, Pastor.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's always a pleasure.
Where are you located in Canada?
Calgary, Alberta, so north of Montana.
Ah, okay. I have not been to that area. My son and his wife live on the East Coast, originally in Nova Scotia, but now on Prince Edward Island. So Americans watched with awe when the Canadian truckers started their convoy. And what they wanted was very simple. They wanted their freedom to choose what went in their bodies. They did not want an experimental injection. But yet they were abused by the Trudeau administration. Their bank accounts locked. Now, you wanted to stand up for your parishioners and hold Mass, but you got a little bit of trouble from the Trudeau administration, didn't you?
Well, actually, let me correct you. This was all levels of government and all the three leading parties, Liberal Party, the Federal Party, also the opposition party, which is the Conservative Party, but also the NDP. So all three parties were involved in this attack on our God and state given rights. And my ordeal started with just simply doing my job as a clergy, as a pastor, as a shepherd, which is feeding the people. Believe it or not, I became the first Canadian to get a COVID ticket at the beginning of 2020. And I had police officers, health inspectors, bylaw services at every church service. And that was going on all the way to December of 2020, where I think I broke some kind of a law, some kind of a record, because I had over 120 police officers, 54 police cars, anti-terrorist SWAT team, and the chief of police, 20 cops on bicycle on top of that, stationed all over the roofs and among us for doing something that I was told is going to destroy the city of Calgary. I did a Christmas festival. At that time, as you remember, singing was prohibited by law. Lord's Supper was prohibited by law, which is a Holy Communion. Feeding, singing, and congregating was prohibited by law. And they came bearing gifts. I ended up with 15 COVID tickets for that. I was told that people are going to die because I had carolers. So that was 2020. Then 2021 showed up. So we were under the boots of the Soviets, as I call it, the hybrid communist, socialist, and fascist. They invaded our church, and that's where the Get Out Nazi video came from, where the police officers, Alberta Health Services, and the Bible Services came illegally trespassed, demanding that we shut down our church service. That was Passover, 4 years ago, Passover. So this is our anniversary. Of course, after that, the video was the number one video that was played on earth, 1 billion views within that weekend. And the government came with a vengeance. And ultimately, I was arrested, in and out of jail, imprisoned. And then with the truckers, I was charged with terrorism for giving a sermon to hurting Canadians. I was part of the truck convoy. My bank account was frozen for a month and a half. I was charged with terrorism, convicted of terrorism, end up in prison for almost 2 years, a year and a half on house arrest, solitary confinement, metal cages, attempted murders. They lit our house on fire. They lit our church on fire, burned down our churches, children's bus, broke into our church multiple times, stole our equipment, cameras, speakers, broke into our home property here, unscrewed tires in our pickup truck. I was physically attacked. I was contacted by Antifa multiple times. I will be assassinated, they said. And also 5 different inmates in prison testified to our lawyers that the guards were giving them incentives to murder me. I mean, the story is so incredible, so crazy, straight from Hollywood production. But I wrote a book. Called Lions Do Not Bow. And believe it or not, I wrote it in solitary confinement. And this book has become the most, in quote, dangerous book in Canada. It was confiscated already by the Canadian government 3 times, and they prohibited the book from entering Canada. It was stopped by the Border Patrol. So we managed to get it to bypass customs. We got it printed in Canada with a friendly print shop, and the book is available on Amazon.com and Amazon.ca. But the story is incredible. I wrote everything. What happened in prison, what happened in before it happened, the background, the truck convoy, the arrests, as you can see. It's just crazy story of what happened. Here are some rallies, some meetings that we had. And I wrote this book on the pieces of, here is my sermon. For this sermon here, I was arrested by a Canadian version of FBI. I was arrested by Calgary police, uniformed. undercover detectives, anti-terrorists, special SWAT team with cameras, interrogated for hours, and I end up in solitary confinement. I was told I am the most dangerous inmate in the country, and I received this letter here, which is insane. This whole story is insane. That's why I encourage people to read it. This document says that they can keep me in MaxPot. MaxPot is a prison for the most dangerous terrorists in the country, and they can keep me there indefinitely. And I was the only inmate in freezing conditions. I was told I'm so dangerous that I cannot even have a pen. I'm so dangerous. And here is I wrote the book on the pieces of request forms. Ultimately, I said my goodbyes to my wife, and I said, it's freezing conditions. I'm shivering. They refuse to give me a blanket. I don't think I'm going to make it. And knowing that the guards were giving inmates in Calgary incentives before I was kidnapped by sheriffs to Edmonton, hundreds of miles away, we knew that my life is in danger. So my wife contacted lawyers. Lawyers sent a letter to the judge. That was a friendly judge. Judge gave them order to release me, and I think ultimately my life was saved that way. But I spent a week also during that time, not only in MaxPot for the most dangerous terrorists, but also in the psych ward without the evaluation of the doctors, without even the knowledge of Alberta Health Services, completely Soviet style, dealing with political dissidents. So there were many arrests. I received ultimately over 360 citations, over 120 court cases, and so many arrests in the middle of the highway by every force in the land that even my lawyers don't remember how many times I end up arrested. I was arrested in a tarmac, stepping out of the plane. I mean, how many people you know or you have seen being arrested coming out of the plane in the middle of the tarmac? I mean, that's insane. I was charged criminally for inciting people to come to church, officiating an illegal gathering, participating in illegal gathering, not wearing a muzzle. I was even criminally charged for baptizing my daughter in a public river. So the story is vast, is crazy. It has many twists, and it's all in a book. Lions Do Not Bow, and you can get it on Amazon.com for American people, Amazon.ca for Canadian friends. So the story continues because Supreme Court of Canada denied my right to an appeal. So according to them, I have no right to appeal my case, and we are pursuing legal actions. I'm suing those people in a legal case, which is we are in the middle of this, and I was told that it's going to take millions of dollars and 10 years. They are doing everything in their power to destroy us financially. In Canada, just like in USA, we have the same thing. We have lawfare, which is, the process becomes the punishment because they know that they have unlimited resources, and we, the victims, we have to use our own funds. We have to, remortgage our houses. I remortgaged my house 7 times to fight them, and we have to crowdfund. So that's pretty much the story. I mean, I can talk for hours just to give you what happened in prison, what happened during arrest, what happened during the courts or the rallies, what happened during the truck convoy, how peaceful it was, how amazing it was. People were bringing their cats and their dogs and their horses and their children, and we had just such an amazing time. Everything you saw coming from all levels of government and the mainstream propaganda machinery, it was all lie. It was all propaganda.
Pastor Pulowski, I am so sorry all this happened to you. I don't understand what happened even in my own country around COVID. I'm a medical provider, and it seems like the whole industry turned their back really to scientific principles. We knew where COVID came from, right? We knew it was from that Wuhan lab. We were looking at those journals since about 2013, but yet the propaganda machine was so powerful, they convinced the world of something else. And then the way they gravitated to this COVID injection that I can't even call a vaccine because it doesn't fit the criteria was bizarre. And I hear your story, And I feel your story, and it does not seem like that can be Canada. I know Canada's doesn't have all the same principles that the United States was founded on, but we're very similar, or should be. At least now in the United States, you start hearing some whispering in certain circles. We were wrong. We made a lot of mistakes. Is that happening in Canada?
No, quite opposite. They are not stopping. And what we're observing, American people have to understand that Canada has fallen. We are living in a totalitarian, soft, police state at this moment, and they're not stopping. That they are still arresting people. They are still sending people from the truck convoy as we speak right now to prison. A friend of mine that we did rallies together was just sentenced to prison a few months ago. Now, in the next few weeks, there's going to be another sentencing of some of the key figures from the truck convoy, and the crown prosecutor wants years of imprisonment. I was facing 12 and a half years for a sermon. What did I say to deserve charges of terrorism and mischief, criminal charges? Well, I told the Canadian people to stand for God and state given rights, and to do it peacefully. 3 times during my 19 minutes address to a peaceful assembly of farmers and truckers with children, women, men, elderly, I told them no guns, no swords. So we can do it solidarity style, because as you know, I am a Polish immigrant. I grew up behind the Iron Curtain under the boots of the Soviets, and I saw the power of the general strike under the solidarity movement. And I'm telling you, and I said that to the crowd, there is more of us than the villains. If we stay together, we will win. We can paralyze their system by simply refusal to work. But that scared the establishment so much that when I stepped out of my home a few days later, I was arrested by our version of FBI, interrogated, stripped naked, and I was kept in metal cages. Can you believe it? In Canada, so-called a democratic country, a pastor, for giving a sermon to a peaceful crowd of people, encouraging them to stand peacefully for the God and state given rights, was kept in metal cages, solitary confinement. They would come to my solitary cell, and I would be taken to another one on concrete, no water and no washroom. And this was going on and on and on and on until I was kidnapped, shackled like an animal, in cage, and taken hundreds of miles away to the city of Edmonton without the knowledge of my legal counselors and my family. I was denied access to my legal counselors for 3 weeks. My write-ups were confiscated by those people. We had to fight really hard to get the write-ups for the eyes of the lawyers only to receive it back. So the story is completely insane. That's why I'm suing those people, and I intend to uncover who did this to us. And I think most important question is why this was done to us. I travel a lot in your country, and my message to the American people is very simple. Put your act together, because if you don't, you're next. Those globalist people are not stopping. They have no intention of stopping. You can see what is happening in Australia. You can see what's happening in New
Yes.
Zealand, in Canada, England, France, Germany. And you have to look in a mirror and you have to ask yourself this simple question. Do we want this in America? And believe me, and believe people like me with accent, we grew up in hell. You don't want this. Trust us.
That's right.
We escaped this
Yes.
craziness, and you don't want it, and you don't want it on your children. So you have to push as hard as you can. Just because you have a better administration right now, and I was cheering, I was traveling, and I was educating the Republican Party on communism and socialism when I was traveling during tour in the US, but now it's not the time. One man cannot do it, one administration cannot do
No,
it.
it's
We
not
have to
one
come
man.
together.
That's right. And I appreciate you calling out what's happening in Canada. We've seen it here in the United States, but it's going to take all of us to reject it. And I wish you the best of luck, Pastor. What you have endured, no man should endure, not in this time. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And again, stay strong. Don't give up. And remember, lions, good people, do not bow before evil people, before hyenas.
I love that title. Well, very diverse guests today, a lot going on in the world. And I too have that warning. Yes, we have a very pro American administration right now, but the depth of some of our government agency is so poisoned with evil. It's going to take all of us to flesh it out and to stay strong and support this administration. Thank you for joining me. I will see you Wednesday.